Okay, so once you get your ZBrush open, you can select any of these spheres. Either one of these is fine, they're all just regular spheres. So we'll just select this one, okay? Make sure to check your Dynamesh, okay? Make sure that it's in a relatively low resolution so that we can move it around and do it easier. You can turn off your perspective and the floor over there, okay? So we'll start off by cutting off the sides about 1/4. So use the clip curve brush. If you don't remember how to do it, you can scroll to the front of the video to check, okay? After we've cut it off, use your mask. You can hold Control, left click and drag to mask it up, okay? Then we'll move on to our move brush, right? It should be over there, okay? Hold Control and click on the empty part of the canvas to invert the mask, and then we'll move the back up just a little bit. Okay, it doesn't have to be overly much. Okay, increase your brush size if it's not enough, like me. Okay, Control and left click outside again so that you can invert it again, and then pull the front down. So the front, this part that we're pulling down will be where your jaw and everything is. Don't worry too much about how low it must be and everything right now, okay? Okay, hold Control and left click and drag on outside of the canvas to clear the mask, and do it again to Dynamesh, okay? Now we'll press and insert, and we'll just put in a cylinder, you know, and we'll just move it, okay, just to put the neck, okay? Make it slightly smaller than the jaws, will be fine, okay, and tilt it forward like that. Lengthen it up a little bit, okay, then move it back, okay, there. Then we'll have a neck now. Just keep it simple. We don't have to do too much right now, and keep everything very low poly, okay? Okay, now remember to, oh wait, sorry. Yeah, I inserted another sphere just to block out the ears. Right now, don't worry too much about how the ears look like, okay? Just make it around the size of an ear. You can look at like reference images to guess how big ears are. Okay, move it into the place. Make sure it's above that that line in between the jaw and the back of the head. Okay, remember to go back to your subtools to click on your head so that we can begin sculpting. All right. Okay, so now we want to make the jaw. So go to your dam standard, okay? Shrink the brush a little bit and hold alternate. And then just draw out the shape of the jaw, okay? Now, if it's a little bit too much, you can lower the intensity, and it's right next to the draw sizes, okay? Remember, hold Alt, left click, and just pull out the jaw, okay? So that will just help give us a line to dictate where the jaw will be, okay? After this, we'll go to our move brush, right? Increase the size a little bit and push the bottom of the jaw up, right? Because right now it's a little bit too fatty down there. So we want to just flatten it up a little bit. But it doesn't have to be like a perfect flat, because if you look at photos of people's, like underneath their jaws, it's not perfectly flat, right? Okay, so right now we're still in our dam standard. Okay, we've increased the size a bit, and we just draw a line for where the eyes will be, okay? It's typically like slightly lower than the top of the ear, because usually your brow ridge would be where the tip of your ears is, right? Okay, and right now we're looking for the like a triangle on the side of the face, okay, because this is one of the few plane changes on the faces. Okay, remember, if the mesh is starting to look a bit too bad, you can increase the resolution. Okay, hold Control and drag and let go on the outside of your model to Dynamesh it. Okay. Okay, there we go. I kept clicking on the wrong button there. Okay. So now we want to push in the top of the temple, right? Okay, so you can go to your trim dynamics. Oh, by the way, we are using the trim dynamics brush for all of this. We'll just push it in a little bit. It doesn't have to be too much, okay? And you can hold shift to just smooth it out a little bit and clean it up a bit, okay? We're also just smoothing the back of the head, just clean it up a little bit more because it all looks a bit messy right now, okay? And don't worry if it looks a bit strange right now, okay? Take your time, don't worry, no rushes. Okay, now we're gonna use the move brush to pull out the middle part of the head, okay? So that was too forward. Try to tilt your guy a bit, and then just pull the middle side of the head a little bit, and just adjust the top of the head. So a lot of this like small adjustments is entirely based on your vision of what the character will look like. Okay, don't be afraid to be a bit more creative. Okay, here I use the pinch brush just to define the plane changes a little bit more, because it, you know, with all the dynamesh and smoothing, it was starting to lose a little bit of definition. So I was using the pinch brush to just sharpen the sides a little bit more, okay? And then I dynameshed it again over there a little bit. Okay. Now, I didn't really like the size and shape of the ears, so I was just adjusting it a little bit here and the placement of it, because I wanted it to like kind of line up with the eyes and the ears a little bit more, okay, so that it would be slightly easier for us to use it as a reference to plot down different parts of the ear. Now usually if you are sculpting with a reference, this is the part where you'll look at your reference and try to match where the placement of the ears are, okay? Now we'll go back to the skull and draw a cheekbone. The way we do this is by using the damn standard brush and hold alternate and just pull it forward. Okay. So now we have a little bit of the cheekbone showing. Okay. Remember, it's damn standard and hold alternate and just drag it out. Okay. Next up, we'll make the brow line. It's the same thing. Hold alternate on the damn standard and just draw a line above the eyes, okay? Here I'm increasing the resolution a bit more so that we can get a little bit more things. Okay, I'm holding shift to smooth out the side of the cheek area, the cheekbone a little bit, okay? And just doing some minor cleanups on a few different places, okay? Don't worry if it still looks a little bit like low resolution and messy right now, because right now we're just blocking out the shapes, okay? There I used the damp standard without pressing alternate to dig into the eyes a little bit more, okay? Okay. Here I'll be using a mask to pull the nose out, okay? So hold control while you're on the mesh and then just left click to draw the shape of a nose out. Okay, I'll go to the side, invert the mask by holding control and left clicking, and then I'll move it out, okay? After moving it out, use the move brush to just roughly put it in a shape of a nose. And because the rest of the face is still masked off right now, so it wouldn't be affected when we move the nose, okay? So next time if you're doing anything that requires like you to move something but you don't want to move like certain parts of it, remember you can use your mask to mask out those areas so that you can move it without having too much issues, okay? There, we'll just move it into a roughly nose shape, will be fine. It still doesn't have to be too clean right now because we're still just blocking out the shapes right now. Okay, I inverted the mask by holding control and clicking, and then I'm gonna pull the front of the head out a little bit because it was a little bit too deep inside. Okay, so a lot of it is just about small little like, you know, changes and fixes, you know, depending on how you think that the character or person that you're sculpting would look like. Okay, and now I'll invert the mask again. Okay, oh wait, sorry. I'll have the clay build up. Brush, I'll lower the intensity because it was slightly too strong for me, and then just build out the little like inflated part where your mouth is. They call it the barrel of the mouth. Okay? So I didn't really like how the way it looked, so I pulled it forward a little bit because the jaw was slightly too deep inwards. So you can just use the move brush to move it a little bit, you know, to make it something that looks more like, you know, your reference or something that you have in mind. I'm not using a reference for this one, so I'm so sorry. Okay, now that I've got the shape that I like, okay, I'm just gonna pull the cheek inwards just a tad bit. Okay. Because I felt like it was slightly too forward. Okay, now I inverted the mask and I'm just pulling in the nose. Okay, pull in, pull in, pull in. Okay, there we go. I hold control and clear the mask by left clicking on the empty part of the mask, and then I dynameshed it by doing the same thing again by holding control and then left clicking and dragging. Okay, here I got the pinch brush just to sharpen up the planes of the nose. Now in hindsight, I did make this nose slightly thinner than what it usually would be if, you know, I had a reference. Okay, and then I dynameshed it again, and here I'm using Z remesher to just redistribute all the vertexes of the face. I increased the polygon count because that one was slightly too low poly. Okay, that'll take a while, and then I just went back. Remember to turn your dynamesh back on. Okay, I redynameshed, and then I just went back in and cleaned up and resharpened the nose a little bit. Okay, so you can just use the pinch brush and just pull on all these areas that you think are going to be sharp and are important plane changes. Okay. So just do the minor cleanup if you think it needs to be done. Here I went back to the damn standard brush because I thought the cheekbones were just slightly too small and not prominent enough. Okay, so I went back with the damn standard and made it slightly more prominent. Okay, so right now in the damn standard brush, okay, I'll draw two lines down by holding alternate so that it comes out instead of going in. Okay, so once you have that, we want to cut this right into 3/4, right, 3 pieces. So there, So you draw two lines, and you want them all to be slightly equal parts is enough. It doesn't have to be too like perfectly equal. Okay, so now that it's in 3 sections, okay, I'll draw out the muscle separation line over there. I don't really know what the name of that muscle is. Okay, it just goes down, and all of this is still using the damn standard brush. And if you're wondering why my cursor is so shaky, is because I'm still just using my mouse. Okay, then I use the move brush because I thought that like the side of his jaws were a little bit too out, and you can just rearrange it and move it however you want. Okay, because within this stage of sculpting, it's still very low poly, it's still very like unclear, so you can just move it however you want. There, I pushed it a little bit too far in because like the mouse controls are a bit hard to use. Okay, here I selected the clay build up tool and lowered the intensity just a little bit. Okay, and I'm just gonna draw in a little bit of eyes. Now we're not doing eyes today, so just drew in like a slight circle oval shape within the eyes. Now remember, there is about a eye length in between separating them. Okay, and then I smoothed it out after using the clay build-up brush, and then I went in with the damp standard to just define the lines and the shape of the eyes. Okay, but right now it's just a temporary eye, just to put it there so that we have a reference of where, like roughly where the eyes will sit. Okay, here I'm using the move brush to just like readjust it because I thought it looked slightly too high and a little bit strange. I'm just adjusting it a little bit, moving it a little bit. Okay, now I'm just pushing the brows down because, like, you know, humans, we have like a little bit of a curve downwards for our brow line. It's not just a straight shot, right? Here I dynameshed it to a higher resolution because the resolution was just slightly too low. Okay, and then I went back in with the damp standard just to like define it a little bit more because I didn't really like the way it looked. It didn't look like defined enough, and I just put in a line to show like where the eyelids would probably meet if, you know, this was an actual eye. Okay, but this is all just for our own reference right now because we will be sculpting and putting in an eye within the next class. So is the ears and everything else. So right now we're almost halfway done. Okay. Oops, accidentally clicked that. Okay, now go back in with your damn standard brush. Okay, and just dig in to the eyes. Okay, that was slightly too intense. Okay, remember the ends of the mouth should end slightly where the middle of the eyes is. Okay, so add in the line for the mouth. Okay, now put in the jaw, chin, like part, you know, the part below your lips where it goes in a little bit. I don't really know what it's called. Yeah. And all of this is done with the damn standard brush. Okay, here we'll hold alternate to just draw out the top of your upper lip. Remember, hold alternate with damn standard, and then now we'll do the most prominent part of the lower lip. Okay, it's the same thing, just hold alternate and drag out the shape. Now I did the same for this part. Okay, I'm just pulling out the bottom of where the jaw is, where your jaw, what is this round circle around the jaw? I forgot what the name of it is. but it's just to make the shapes out, okay? So after this, I brought in the pinch brush, just to like sharpen things around a bit more, okay? And I dynameshed it. And here I'm increasing the resolution a little bit more, but you don't actually have to push it this high right now. Okay. But right now I'm using the move brush to just rearrange the mouth area a little bit, because I didn't really like you know, the placement of it is, because it doesn't really make sense proportion wise. I held control and I drew a mask over the face so that while I'm moving the mouth, it won't affect those other parts, okay? So I'm just pulling the upper lip out a little bit more, okay? Then there, I cleared the mask. Okay, I just turned off perspective just to check. And at this stage, I realized that the mouth and the eyes are a little bit too far apart. So I'll be adjusting that later. But right now I'm just gonna clean up, because after you move, you stretched a lot of the vertexes here. So I'm just cleaning it up a little bit. You know, smoothing everything out by holding shift. Here I brought out the trim dynamic brush, is to push that part in slightly more, because it was after moving it was jutting out a little bit too much. Okay. And here I went back in to the pinch brush just to like define the shape of the brow line a little bit more, because I thought it was slightly too messy. And remember, when you're sculpting, you usually jump from part by part. You know, every time you notice something wrong or you notice that something looks a bit odd, you can immediately jump over there to like fix it up a little bit. Here I'm cleaning up the nose instead, just to like, you know, clean up and define more areas that will help you and your brain to, you know, convey the shapes that you want to make. There's no like step by step on what you have to do each time, and you know what you have to achieve like within this part of the sculpt or anything. Feel free to just jump around, jumble this up, all these, because I'm just showing you like the way I do it. You know, other people might do it slightly different. Okay, here I use the dam standard to draw in like the upper forehead like crease over there. And then I'll add 2 lines that's going down, that is connected to the brow crease and to the tip of where your brow line is. So this 2 lines is where, you know, when you're making like an angry face or you furrow your brows, you know that 2 lines that show up, it's like the intersection between where the muscles are. And we're not going to draw out each like muscles individually, but it's nice to just put it in there so later on you can have like a good idea of where it is. Okay. There's also a like slight triangle over here. Okay. So here I didn't really like how the eyes was sitting, so I was just moving it and cleaning up. So a lot of sculpting is just about making sure you get the primary forms, which is your big forms, your silhouettes and all that. And when it comes to your secondary forms, which is what we're working on now, there's a lot of push and pull, you know. You do one thing and then you fix up the other part, and then you notice another issue with the sculpt and then you go in and fix it. So don't worry if it looks strange when you first start. You can always come back and you know, just fix up a little part, move it with the brush, mask out a little part, you know, smoothen something. You always just be free to constantly readjust things around the face, right? Because you'll never get like everything perfectly correct within the first time of doing it. Okay, so I'm back into the move brush because I felt like the eyes and the forehead were just slightly too high. Now I'm just bringing everything down a little bit more right now. Okay, here I am masking it so that I can move it down a little bit, but you know, it was causing me issues. So I kind of gave up on that idea. I did not do that. Okay, I went back into the damn standard brush, and then I drew out the smile lines. Now this is where like the side of your face and your mouth connects. You know how when you smile or anything, that little like crease in your face that comes out? Yeah, so I'm just drawing it. It should connect to like slightly lower part of your nose all the way down to your chin. To your jaw, sorry, not your chin. The side of your jaw. Okay, so I was just constantly readjusting it because I didn't really like the placement of it. By the way, this is also why you use your pen and tablet instead of a mouse, because it's just far easier to control. Okay. Okay. Here I'm just blocking in. This is all still using the damn standard. A little bit of the muscles that is in your under lip, the underside of your lips, bottom lips. Okay, and I'm just blocking in more shapes and creases in the face. Now I don't really know what these creases are called, but if you study anatomy and like where muscles are and everything, you would know. I have not really studied muscles and anatomy much, so I don't know what exactly these muscles are called. Okay. And then here I'm still using the damn standard brush to block out where the eye sockets are. So this is where your eyes end, and usually like if you're making a character with a lot of eye bags and all that, it will be inside this area. I'm just blocking it out. So later on in the next step, a lot of all these things would be smoothed out, you know, but we're blocking it in right now so that when you smooth it out, it will still have like a little bit of that. It still peeks through a little bit to show the forms. They're there. Okay, I went back into the move brush over here just to readjust everything, you know, because I felt like the proportions were still a bit strange. Okay, just move things around. And like I said, this part, all these parts are mostly up to your idea, how good you are with, you know, anatomy and all that, and proportions, and how you feel if something looks right. So more to your art sense, you know. Brought the face down a little bit. Now I pulled the top of the head in a little bit, just readjust it. Now if you were doing a female character, everything would be mostly the same. It's just the, like, you know, the squareness of the jaw, because, you know, like more feminine jaws would be more rounder, and, you know, it wouldn't be so like edgy and rigid like a man's jaw. So all of this is just, you know, moving small parts of it a little bit just to like get something that I think looks right. Okay. Here I went back into the pinch brush just to define a lot of the plane changes and all that we did before this, just clean it up a little bit more. Went to the dam standard to dig deeper into the mouth. So at this part, I'm just like, I'm cleaning up everything. Increase the resolution a little bit more so that I can clean it up a bit more. Okay, so right now we're in the final stage. Okay, so mostly what we're doing right now is just smoothing out a lot of the parts and fixing up a lot of the other parts by clearing it. Okay, so right now I'm just gonna make the shape of the mouth make more sense, like more realistic, by pushing the middle part up a little bit and on the side down. Okay, kind of like a wave shape or something like that. Okay, so I'm using the damn standard brush. Just draw it down a little bit. Yeah, because in the middle of the mouth, if you look in a mirror, you'll see that your lips is not a straight line, it curves up and down. Okay, then I dynameshed on the side there. I just wanted to add more resolution, but honestly I should have just z-remeasured this instead of increasing the dynamesh resolution. Okay. And I use the pinch brush to just change the shape a little bit of the tip of the lips to get it to be slightly closer to what a actual lip shape would be like. And I'm cleaning up the shape a little bit more here, adding more emphasis to the plane changes of the lips. So here I use the inflate brush just to add a little bit more volume into the lips, because right now since everything is just like a flat plane, it looked a little bit flat. I hope the background noise isn't too bad. So I'm doing the same for the bottom lip by inflating it a little bit just to add a little bit more juiciness. Now, I recommend you keep your intensity low so that at this stage, because you want to just move things a little bit, you don't want it to be too you don't want to push things too far, small amounts, just move it a little bit and check to see if it looks right to you. If it's not enough, push it more. If it's too much, push it in. Okay, here I'm adding in the lip creases. Okay, I'm just readjusting the mouth a little bit. So, to be honest, a lot of this stage of the sculpting is just about readjusting things and moving things around to see what you feel looks right to you, like within your eyes. Like now that I've done everything and now that I'm re-watching everything, I feel like the nose is slightly too short. It's a little too short, and the mouth area, the jaw area is like kind of big actually. Like the proportions aren't like exactly perfect with this sculpt. If I had to go back to change it, I would, follow up with the proportion a little bit more, because I think you noticed too if you're watching this that the nose area is slightly too short. So I'm just using the dam standard brush there to add in the fill trim over there. And then I sharpen it up with dam standard alt on the sides. There. And then I pinch because like the tip of the lips lost a bit of its edge over there when I was doing that. So it's a lot of just clean up and like moving things around at this stage. Okay, here I'm sharpening the separation between the nose and the lips a little bit because it got slightly too smooth over there. Look at this small nose. It's way too small. I should have. It's too short and too small. I'm so sorry, guys. I did not realize it while sculpting until now. And that's the thing about sculpting, you know, a lot of the times you sculpt something for hours on end and you don't really notice it until you put it down and you walk away and come back and you notice that like, oh, it looks strange or it looks a little bit weird. So here I'm using the clay buildup brush to add a little bit of the upper lip muscles there, the small little folds in the skin. Oh man, I can't get over how small that nose is. But yeah. So you can use things like your dam standard brush now and the clay buildup brush to just add like forms and folds right now. Which is why I recommend that while you're sculpting your character, please make sure to look at a reference and look at other references from like better artists online. Just make sure that all forms and everything is proper, because sometimes we'll naturally miss certain things, right? Like the way the skin flows or the way the skin folds. Like I miss a lot of like the muscles and stuff like that too sometimes. So it's always good to just look at references, look at how other people are sculpting this, so that you can tell that, oh, I missed this part of this, and then you can come back and add it in. Because the good thing about sculpting is it's never too late to add something. Here I'm using the smooth to just like clean up a lot of all the other things, because like all those parts right now, they're very, very defined. So we're just gonna smooth out everything and make sure that most of the face is like nice and smooth, because like human faces, even we blocked out where the plane changes and everything was, and then now we're just like smoothing everything and making everything round off, you know, because like human faces are like slightly rounder. Yeah. There I'm adding more of the like connective muscles on the face. Oops, wrong button. There, I'm just smoothing out, adding a little bit more volume, like rounding everything out. Here I change over to the inflate brush, because the inflate brush does a good job of just rounding things off. There, and the intensity was slightly too strong. You know, round it off, and then I smooth it out. So every time at this stage, like every time you add something, you kind of just want to like just smooth it back out, because you no longer want all that like really intense plane changes and sharp edges anymore. So the reason why I keep pausing and going off screen is just to have a look at like my notes on the side. Okay, here I'm just smoothing in the nose a little bit, because I'm gonna start adding in the nose wings after this, I think. Yes, so I moved over to the clay build-up brush, and then I started adding in the wings of the nose. And at this part, you can really notice how short the nose is. I can't believe I didn't even notice this while I was sculpting it. Like, it looks so normal when I was sculpting it, but now that I'm looking at it, it is a very tiny short nose. I'm so sorry I keep repeating that because it's really, really standing out to me right now. It's kind of annoying me how short the nose is. Okay, so I'm just using the clay build-up brush to draw the wings of the nose, getting the form and the way that it flows to be right, and then smoothing everything in with by pressing shift and clicking over it. So the clay build-up brush is actually a really good brush to just add like extra form or volume to things. I went down to the damn standard brush so that I can get the side creases of the nose to be more defined. And then I changed over to the move brush to just like adjust the nose shape a little bit, because right now it's in a really, it kind of looked like a bird beak shape, so I just wanted to round it off a little bit more, you know, because human noses are a bit round. And I also added a little bit of that nose bridge, but like that bridge, to be honest, like mostly is just on like white people like Western people and stuff like that. Asians don't really have a very prominent nose bridge. Okay, so usually if you're sculpting nose, there's a lot more anatomy that goes into it. There's a lot of different plane changes, but just to simplify it and keep it simple, I didn't really go too in depth with the plane changes and things like that for the nose. Okay, so now I'm just having a look at what seems weird and what seems odd to me. You know, coming back, cleaning up the crease in the nose a little bit better where the wings are. And I think at this part I drew in the nostrils, but I'm not too sure. I think I might have just undid it later on and then started drawing the nostrils in again later, after smoothing out the face. Yeah, I think I probably didn't keep this. Yeah, it was way too forward, the nostrils, so I just undid everything. Yeah, because I also wanted to remeasure it again, just so that everything was fine. Because at that point, like a lot of the vertexes were starting to get stretched out, even though we were in like a million polygons at that point. So here I noticed that the zero measure was slightly too low polygon. I just pulled it all the way to the max. You don't really have to. You can just adjust and test it out to see what works best for you and what looks amazing for you. Okay, and also don't forget to turn Dynamesh back on after that. Okay, always turn Dynamesh back on after you're done z-remeshing. Okay, here I went to the pinch brush just to define all these shapes and smoothing out anything that looks weird. Because every time you do things like z-remesher or Dynamesh, you lose a little bit of the like fidelity that you've sculpted in. So it's always good to just come back and like, you know, put things deeper in. Here I'm just smoothing out all the different parts around the faces because it looked a bit strange. I'm just sharpening up the eye area a little bit. Oops, that was an accident. Okay. So I've decided that it's time to just start smoothing everything out, you know, round out all those forms and faces. You can even come in with the inflate brush on a very, very low intensity just to add like a bit more volume into things. I accidentally clicked on the wrong mask button over there. And here I'm changing it back to the regular drawing mask. I'm just masking out the important parts of the face that I don't want to smooth out. And then I smooth everything. So remember, it's hold shift on any brush to smooth. I'm still smoothing in things here because it's like a real person's face, like all these little creases and stuff like that, they're not so prominent, right? Here I'm just like fixing up the shape of the brow, and like honestly, like all these parts, there isn't really a step-by-step guide on how or what I'm doing. It's just everything right now is based on vibes, like literally. Like if you think it doesn't really look right to your eyes, then try doing it. Try fixing it up and see if it looks right to you. You know, it's all about pushing and pulling things, adjusting things a little bit, just make sure that they look right to you and to your eyes. So I wanted to add a little bit more volume into these parts. So I used the inflate brush with a very low intensity just to add a little bit more volume on the side. I thought like the wings of the nose were slightly too weak as well, so I'm just like fattening it up a little bit over here. Okay. And I thought the jaw was slightly too square, like the chin area, sorry, not the jaw. So here I'm trying to round it out a little bit more. You know, just smoothing things out, cleaning it up. And to be honest, we're pretty much almost done here. Other than the nostrils, right? It's just a lot of small cleanups and stuff like that. If you want to go further and you want to put in a lot more of the like muscle folds and all that, you're free to do so. But for our class use cases, it is roughly good enough. So here I'm just defining in like the smile lines, the ones that we did earlier, a little bit more because like I felt like it wasn't prominent enough. I just wanted it to be slightly more prominent over here. So I'm just like adding a little bit in with a clay buildup brush and then smoothing it out. Okay, I hope this video wasn't overly long. And here I'm just coming in, defining things up a little bit more. You can kind of ignore the eyes if you don't want to do it, to be honest. I just didn't like how it looked a bit strange. Here I am. Adding it in and then smoothing it out. So it's a lot of like adding forms, adding crevices, creases and stuff like that, and then smoothing it out. Adding more and then smoothing it out. Yeah. Just find all the shapes and things that you think looks right to you right now. Here I'm sharpening it out, that part a little bit more. I keep clicking on Control instead of Shift. I felt like it was starting to get a bit blurry in the lips area. I'm just sharpening it up even more. I know it's a bit repetitive right now. All I'm saying is I'm smoothing things out and I'm sharpening. I'm smoothing things out and I'm sharpening. But essentially, at this part, this is what it is, right? Obviously, someone with like more anatomy knowledge and proportion knowledge would do a lot more here. Okay, so here I move back to getting the nostrils in. And while I was drawing it, I also noticed that the distance between the nostrils was slightly too far as well. So after I used the damn standard brush to push in the nostrils, I did use the move brush to like pull them back in together. Now for the nostrils, you kind of want to just get like a bean, like a little bean shape if you're doing a real human. Obviously, if you're doing like a cartoon character or anything like that, it would be, you know, it can be any shape that you want, because stylized characters, like, it just depends on you, right? What your art style is. So I came in, sharpen it up, clean it up with the smooth brush, and then I'm gonna move the nostrils inwards now because it is way too far apart. So I don't want you guys to be afraid of making mistakes while you're modeling, because it will happen naturally, right? You will make a bunch of mistakes, especially if you're new to sculpting, and I hope you don't feel ashamed of it. Just take it as like a fun or a funny thing, you know? If you made it look weird, then you made it look weird, you know? Everybody learns from the start, and it's okay. Don't be too hard on yourself. I'm still not like really great at sculpting things too. You know, I'm not perfect. I can't like, you know, sculpt out Mona Lisa or anything. And usually sculpting, it takes days. It takes time, you know. You don't want to rush these things. Like, we usually just sculpt a little bit, you know, make sure get as much as we can out of the way, and then we'll leave the project for the day. We'll come back in tomorrow with fresh eyes, and you know, you start noticing a lot of things that you did wrong, and you're like, oh damn, okay, now I see it, you know, I see how it looks weird or it looks strange, and you can come in and fix it. So like I said earlier, here I am just like pushing the nostrils closer together because I felt like it was a bit too far apart. But I think all of this stemmed from the fact that my nose itself was too short to begin with. But I think it looks fine. It doesn't look too weird. Like, I could totally imagine someone with a short nose like that. In fact, I think I have a really short nose too. I'm just smoothing out the back of the head. And I think after this, I'm just pinching out and like making the jawline slightly more defined because we didn't really touch on it or work on it earlier. Okay, here I'm just defining out the jaw a little bit more because, like, especially like really muscular or masculine men have really defined jaws. You know, they be mogging everyone all the time. And at this point, I think I was just decided that, yeah, so this face is essentially complete. Just added in a little bit more volume on the side and stuff like that. Now remember, always use reference when you're sculpting. I made a big mistake by just trying to sculpt through my imagination. It's like drawing, you know, if you don't have a reference of a character that you're drawing, you don't really know what or where to put things or how you'd like something to look at, and you'd just be, you know, sculpting through your imagination, which isn't always correct. Okay, here I'm just doing more cleanup and, you know, pushing things around, smoothing more things out, and, like, you know, inflating things a little bit if they look a bit weird to me. And yeah, we're basically essentially done at this point. Now, if you're at this stage, don't be afraid to just like move things around a little bit. You know, sometimes you'll never know if you move something and it looks a lot better than you thought. Here I'm just like adjusting things a little bit more with the eyes and stuff like that. And yeah, I thought it was done. And I decided to move to the cylinder. Added the Dynamesh onto the cylinder, smoothed everything out. I also forgot to turn on symmetry here. So I don't know if you noticed, but like I was only moving this side of the geometry and I wasn't really moving the other side of the geometry. I noticed it here, which I turned on symmetry. So you turn on symmetry by pressing X. So please remember to always check before you sculpt things. Sometimes you would forget and it will cause some problems. So in the front I use the dam standard to just like get the collarbones out, and we'll do the rest of the body next week. Okay. Oops, I'm not too sure what I pressed over here. I made a mistake, so just ignore this part. Yeah, and here I'm using the standard brush to break apart the collarbone and just moving things out. Adding like a little side thing because we're like making a bust right now, right? Then I added in like the back forms and like the back muscle areas. So usually when I sculpt, I usually just pick the biggest and most prominent muscles to, you know, I know a lot more people, they do the smaller and, you know, a lot more important muscles and all that. You're gonna have to study that, but because I don't really, my anatomy is still really, really bad. So I don't really know where all the forms and muscles are. Here I'm making the muscle that is connected to from the middle part of the back of the head, and it comes down all the way to your collarbone. It connects. If you look at a mirror, you can actually see this muscle, and it's a very, very prominent muscle, right? I'm just using the clay build-up brush and smoothing it out, and then coming in with a dam standard to make sure that it's more prominent, and then smooth everything out. You know, clean it up a little bit more. And you're done. So essentially this is a bust. Now we'll work on the ears and maybe the eyes.